Last night the President spoke about our dangerous debt and his commitment to bringing it down. But actions speak louder than words. He unfortunately recommitted to spending more money we don't have on so-called investments. And while he called for a spending freeze, no one should forget that this administration increased discretionary spending by 24% over the last 2 years and 84% if we count the ineffective stimulus by 84%. It's time to cut spending, not freeze it at these bloated and unsustainable levels. And that leads me to why we are here today. Families across America have tightened their belts, balanced their budgets, and lived within their means. The same can't be said of Washington, where runaway spending has pushed our nation's debt into very dangerous levels. In fact, just today, CBO announced a record $1.5 trillion deficit for this year, and this is absolutely unacceptable. In November, the American people sent Washington a message. Get our fiscal house in order by cutting spending and the debt so our nation finally lives within its means just like we do. All of us standing here today, who will be speaking here today, couldn't agree more. Our $14 trillion debt threatens our economic future, hurts competitiveness, and jeopardizes our national security. And the situation is getting even worse. Under this administration, federal spending has reached 25% of our nation's economic output. Only during World War II was federal spending a larger part of the economy. And if we don't act, our debt could reach an astonishing 90% of GDP in less than a decade, according to CBO, and the government will spend almost $1 trillion just paying the interest on that debt at that time. Regrettably, Washington has proven it won't solve this crisis on its own. Every time it's raised taxes and cut spending in the name of deficit reduction, the tax increases remained, but spending did not stay down. Instead, those higher taxes were used to fuel more spending and more government. Now, the responsible way to respond is a constitutional balanced budget amendment that sets strict spending limits while requiring the President to submit a balanced budget to Congress every year. If every state except Vermont, and we all understand Vermont, in every state except Vermont and countries like Germany and Switzerland are required to balance their budgets, it's more than past time Washington is required to as well. Our amendment also caps federal spending at 20% of GDP. Now, that's down from the current 25%. It prohibits tax increases unless approved by two-thirds of both the House and the Senate. Setting these restrictions on tax increases is critical to stopping the spending that fuels an almost unending expansion in the federal government. This amendment isn't a new idea. In 1997, when I forced the last vote on a balanced budget amendment, 66 senators from both sides of the aisle supported it. Just imagine if we had enacted that amendment back in 1997, we would not have increased the debt 10 times over the last number of years since. Now, given our staggering debt, I'm confident that this amendment will garner significant support this time around. It's been endorsed by the American Conservative Union, Americans for Tax Reform, the National Taxpayers Union, and Ken Blackwell, who is here with us today, the chairman of Pass the Balanced Budget Amendment Coalition, so we are off to a strong start.